Despite the concerted efforts made by the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at effectively managing the country's foreign exchange market, capital importation into the country has dropped significantly to $4.08 billion, amounting to 1.68 trillion naira in 9 months in the year 2021. During this period, foreign portfolio investment contributed the most significant amounts to capital inflows, accounting for $4.31 billion of the total capital importation, followed by other investments, which accounted for $1.33 billion. Then the foreign direct investments, which accounted for $214.25 million. With the threat of capital depletion, investors are forced to consider climbs with more excellent price stability, as analysts blame the drop sustainability to poor management of foreign exchange and an upward trend in inflation, which averaged 17% in 2021, exceeding the single-digit inflation target by the Apex Bank. Well, let's analyze the impact of this development on the Nigerian economy as well as trade and investment climate of the country. I introduced him earlier. He's joining me via Zoom. He's the Deputy President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa. Good afternoon, Mr. Idahosa. It's good to see you on the other side today. You're not live in the studio.
Good afternoon, Tolu. How are you?
I'm very well. Yes, what first do you think is responsible for this drop in capital importation, despite all efforts by the central bank to boost the naira, of course, and been trying to supply FX to all segments of the market?
Essentially, investors have a very wide choice where to direct their investments. There are at least 180 countries in the world that are attracting investment at any point in time. So where investment goes is driven by a lot of things. The ease of doing business, the ease of moving your investments in foreign currency in and out of the country quickly, in the case of portfolio investors. And in the case of direct investors, direct investment, they are looking at the strength of the economy in terms of the policies, how steady are the policies, how fragile are the policies, how easy is it to take away your profits and repatriate any other investments you want to repatriate. On most of these counts, Nigeria ranks very, very low among all the countries in the world. We tend to depend almost 100% on our very large markets. And say we are 200 million people, and we have the largest market race among the top 7 countries in the world in terms of population. So yes, we have an attractive market in terms of size, but we do not have an attractive market in terms of policies. And so that's the real root of the issue. And until we address the policy environment very comprehensively and taking into account that all investors have a very wide choice and not just believe that Nigeria, for some reason, must attract foreign or direct foreign portfolio or direct investment. That's really the main issue. There are other temporary issues about inflation. Inflation really is not the main issue here. It is the foreign currency policy, how quickly you can move your money in and out, and how well the foreign market is market-driven rather than administratively driven by the central bank as we still have it today. So these are the issues that we need to address as a country. If we can leverage on a very large market to attract the kind of investment that we truly desire compared to other countries in the world, not just to talk of, not even talking about Africa. In the whole world, we are perhaps one of the most attractive investment destinations by market size and potential for growth. But all the other parameters that investors are looking at are working against us at this time.
But you're a major player in the Nigerian business space, talking about what LCCI does, but I want to ask you, with all of the efforts aimed at ease of doing business, I think there's even a special advisor that's talking about Dr. Jumoke there, you know, supervising this very segment where they meet with private players like the LCCI, NASIMA, and all other chambers of commerces, and of course business people. What would you say are the positives of all of these gatherings? At the time, there was a one-stop shop where you have the likes of the regulators in there talking about the problems, and they're trying to address them head on. Have we really achieved anything good or any positives in all of this efforts?
Yes, we have achieved a lot. The Enabling Business Office has achieved a lot. For example, it takes just a few days now to incorporate a business in Nigeria. Very, very quick. Everybody can applaud the government on that. A lot of business transactions are now automated. You can do a lot of government business online. You don't have to go to the offices of government to do a whole range of business. The government has done very well in promoting exports. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council has done a lot of good work to promote exports, to build capacity in the quality of exports. But when you look at the policies and the implementation down the line, the real issues are implementation of policies down the line. For example, when you now want to export or if you want to import, what happens at the ports, at the seaports, at the airports? All these policies are designed to facilitate very quick movement of goods in and out of the country. But unfortunately, a combination of human and physical infrastructure issues means that this does not happen. And so exporters have their goods sitting at the port for 2 months, 3 months or more, including perishable goods. And importers have their goods stocked in the warehouses at the terminals, trying to get them out of the port, sometimes 3 weeks, 4 weeks, paying huge damages. So the real issue is not the quality of the policies that have been implemented at the top level, at the office level, on ease of doing business. Is the execution of those policies at the ground level, in the airports, in the seaports, in government officials that go to factories to inspect them and give necessary approvals. That is where the government still has a lot of work to do, because there's a disconnect between the aspirations of PEBEC, the Presidential Enabling Business Office, and the actual activities of the officials on ground in all these locations that are supposed to faithfully implement these policies. So that huge disconnect is still a challenge that we see. Anyone you talk to, whether at the Chamber of Commerce, the Manufacturers Association, the Exporters Association, they will tell you that is where the real challenge is. They applaud what government is deciding at the offices, in their offices, but when they come to the streets, to the airports, to the seaports, to the processing plants, and the kind of interaction they have with government officials, then you see a very big gap between the policy intentions and what's really happening.
Let's talk about the bottlenecks that make Nigeria a second or third rated. Look at what's happening now. People prefer to even go to the likes of Ghana to do business other than coming to Nigeria. How can we redefine our trade policies, of course, international trade policies, particularly as we're looking at the AFCFTA right in front of us?
The trade policies are essentially right. We have signed on AFCFTA. We are yet to fully complete all the protocols to ensure full implementation. Across the board, whether it's the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, whether it's Ministry of Finance, whether it's the CBN, the essential policies are right, except in the case of foreign exchange control by CBN. So the issue is not really the existence or lack of existence of the right policies. It is the implementation by officials of government that are supposed to buy into those policies and faithfully execute them. That is where the challenge is. For example, if the law says if you want to export products and you bring them to the port, they must leave in 24 hours or 48 hours, and all the processes are engineered designed and implemented to achieve that in Ghana, and you can actually export your products within 48 hours of their getting to the ports. And you come to Nigeria, it's taking 4 weeks or even more to do the same thing. It's only natural that an investor that has a choice will go to Ghana to put his export factory. So this, you can multiply this experience by as many times as you can imagine across all other issues, including permits, getting the relevant permits for your products, getting the processing by the customs of each country, whether they are import or exports, the clearing process at the ports. These details are where we have a lot of downsides compared to the countries you have mentioned, whether in Africa or outside Africa. We just have to find a way to get officials of governments at these locations, at these facilities, to understand that they are there to protect the interests of the country primarily, and finally in their own interest, because if the country is doing well, they are, individuals are also doing well. But getting them to understand that it's a long journey. At least as we stand now, that's the state of the experience of people who have to deal with these agencies and these locations.
Well, yeah, before we wrap up this very important discussion, I'd like to also look at the angle of foreign portfolio investments and foreign direct investments. We see that the FPIs are still doing very well other than the foreign direct investments. Is there an issue of confidence here, or what do you think investors are looking at the moment?
First, it's an issue of confidence, especially when you are looking at foreign direct investment. You want to be confident that when you set up your factory or your business here and you start to make profits, you can easily remit your dividends, and that the value of those dividends will remain good compared to where you invested. So if you invested when the dollar was 300 to the naira, and by the time you want to remit your profits, your dividends, the dollar is now 500 to the dollar, the naira is now 500 to the dollar, then it means that you've lost easily 200 naira per dollar since you set up your direct investment here by way of your factory or any other facility. But with foreign portfolio investments, you can turn around in a few days. You can bring your money, buy shares in the stock exchange on a Monday, and on a Friday, if the price goes up, you can sell and begin to remit your money and actually succeed in remitting it. So you will always see foreign portfolio investments doing well in a country that has strong fundamentals like Nigeria, but very fragile policy environment. They are ready to come in and move out and take a quick profit at any time. And there's a lot of that to get in the Nigerian capital market if you know how to trade properly and read the market.
Let's now look at infrastructure development, which will at least help smoothing logistics value chain if we have it. Why is it difficult at times for all of these regulators, for government agencies, for government representatives to replicate what they see overseas? How smooth and comfortable, easy it is. Can't we replicate that here? What is making it so difficult?
Well, it's just policy choices. Policy choices, that's all. We had the right policy choice with telecom 20 years ago, and you see that our telecom structure is practically as good as you can find anywhere in the world. At that same time, 20 years ago, around 2000, if we had done the same thing for railways and set up a Nigerian Rail Transport Commission for railways, at the same time as we set up Nigerian Communications Commission for the telecom industry, we will have a world-class rail transport industry today, because foreign investors, local investors will have poured money into the sector just by getting licenses from the Nigerian Rail Transport Commission and build the rail lines the way telecom operators have got licenses and built our telecom infrastructure. So it just comes down to very basic policy choices in the areas where we are having a lot of issues. And that also goes for the airports. If you give licenses to Singapore Airport or Dubai Airport to build airports in Nigeria, 20 years ago, we wouldn't be worrying about the infrastructure of our airports. We will have world-class airports. And like telecom industry, we will be earning a lot of fees and levies from the operators of this infrastructure to governments. So they will become huge sources of revenue rather than huge sources of budget waste and heavy borrowing like we are doing now to be realized. And as a country, we have no business borrowing any money to be realized. If we did exactly what we did in Nigeria with telecommunications, and we are not borrowing money to build any communication facility in Nigeria. The operators licensed are pouring all the money in naira and in billions of dollars to invest in the telecom industry because we essentially made the right choice. And we still can do that choice in the rail industry, in the airports, in the seaports, and we'll get exactly the same results.
Let's wrap up on this note. What more initiatives or what kind of discussions do you think we need to be looking at now if we are to even promoting exports is what I'm even looking at now, so that we can improve, or should I say attract more investment into the country? Of course, attract investment, promoting exports and all of that. What do you think we can do considering insecurity and all that we grapple with?
Well, insecurity is there, but it's not as critical as the fundamentals. We just talked about how easy it is to export. And the central bank recently, in its race to 200 billion, mentioned a very, very important solution, which is a dedicated export terminal. A terminal that does nothing but just receives goods ready for exports and ships them out of the country very, very quickly. That would be a major game changer in exports in Nigeria. If the central bank can achieve that, and any exporter knows that all I need to do is to get my goods to the export terminal. That terminal has the facilities, the processes, the customs, the shipping, the clearing, everything that ensures that your export products leave the country as soon as they arrive at the terminal. That would be a major change. Because a lot of exporters, in spite of security, in spite of the exchange rate, are willing and able to export. Even with all these difficulties, there's a lot of non-oil export going on. So you can imagine if we have that, supported by the existing policies we have from the enabling business framework and what the central bank is trying to do to export, to encourage exports. Again, we have to allow exports to have full value for their export proceeds and to change that at the free markets. Because when I export my dollars, I want to be able to exchange it in the free market. I don't want anybody to tell me the price at which I should exchange my dollar, which I receive from the sweat of my exports. So these are the key things that we can do as a country, and then we begin to see a different narrative.
I must thank you so much for your time. I've been speaking to Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, who's the Deputy President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much for helping us make sense of this topic of discourse. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.